I can remember coming in to practice one day and having a great practice. Oh man, I'm awesome. Came in the next day and had a bad practice. And at the end of the day, I thought, well, what happens if I go to the national championships and I have the second day practice and not the first? My whole focus changed. Everything about my practice changed. There are two distinct challenges. One, to learn how to perform well, but then once that curtain rises and it's the big moment and the pressure's on, how to perform in that moment as well. And you have to make practice as tough or tougher than the competition itself. So you don't get confident. You don't go out and buy it at, on Amazon or something. You have to earn it. You have to build on it. You have to, and I think how you do that is by every day really proving to yourself in those moments. Some of the things that we really ask my athletes to do is to think a lot, to evaluate what they do after each practice, to take it home with them and to really analyze it and think about what it is you were doing and what you got out of that, and to have specific goals for the next practice so that when you come in, you're focused, you're goal-directed, and you're gaining improvement with each practice. I think that's important to really start where you left off. And what I mean by that is I've seen athletes who will really work on something, a skill, get it down, and then the next day I'll come in and I'll say, well, what did we work on yesterday? They can't remember. And what happens is that, we took a step forward, say on Monday, and then Tuesday, instead of starting where we left off and taking another step and being 2 steps ahead, we start back on Tuesday where we started on Monday. And so, there really is, it's a kind of a contradiction that, because performance really wants to be automatic. It wants to just be accessed automatically through long-term memory. We don't really think much about it. But to get to that level, I think takes a lot of analysis, a lot of cognition, a lot of, and what we know from experts in any field, they have goals for every single thing they do.
I'm wondering how you use recording effectively and make it a tool that's helpful instead of one that makes us feel worse about how we sound.
For me, it goes out to separating into like work mode versus performance mode. And for me, those are two very sort of separate worlds, mentally and emotionally for myself. I record almost everything at this point, and then it's usually at this moment for me if I'm recording something in an orchestra setting, it's just for my own double checking. If it didn't go well and I'm not sure why, if I thought maybe I was out of tune and I'm not positive which way. So it can help with problem solving in that regard. It can also reassure me in certain situations if I'm not sure that it was okay. It can be a real efficiency tool for me. I have an audition preparation sheet that I have. It has a lot of recording and then listening back and then making goals off of what you just recorded, and it can separate you from yourself. It's like you can then be the teacher who's listening and saying, that was very good. I would work on this, this, and this. And you can listen to it after the practice session that night. And then tomorrow you just work on it with those comments that, somebody, yourself, just gave you. And then you kind of get to work again. And it can kind of help you just improve quickly, and very rationally and outside of any emotions that happen in the practice room. So
it sounds like you're able to use the recording not to decide if you sound good or not, but more just to figure out what's the most helpful thing I could work on today or tomorrow.
The French horn, you just have to accept the imperfection of that instrument. You have to accept your own humanity and your own imperfection, and there's just an element of self-compassion and humor, the combination of those two things, because otherwise you'll just go insane or you'll quit. There's sort of that separate goal of I'm working hard and I work on little details that have nothing to do with my self-worth as a musician, and then I express as sort of a gift and as a gift that was given to me, I can then give to the world. If I come at it from that emotional standpoint and try to make sure there's humor and compassion in there for myself and for others, then I'm not recording or doing anything else from the standpoint of, do I sound good or do I not sound good?
I'm curious how you make that switch from the work mode to that place where you're not so self-critical in that moment of performing.
I think it has to do with the in-the-moment nature of what you're sculpting. And when I'm practicing, I try to break things down into why does this passage exist? What was the composer going for? But then practically speaking, I try to practice into what I'm preparing, enough elements of in the moment that I have goals basically every second of what I'm going to play. So I know exactly where I want to phrase to, where I want to crescendo and decrescendo, making sure it's true to the page, making sure that perhaps the breathing that I'm doing fits the style of the music, fits the emotion of the music, making sure the subdivision inside my body is the right kind of energy for whatever the piece is, making sure that, note endings and lengths and how notes relate to each other, how much stretch and how much sort of flippancy, all of those little style things are, things that I am either choosing to do instinctually in the moment or I've already practiced it in. If you're doing it instinctually, you just try a bunch of different ways. If you're practicing it in, of course, you make the decision. So I kind of try to think things through pretty detailedly so that in the moment then, of course, it's a marriage of musical and technical, but in the moment then you feel a little freer because you feel prepared. Preparation being the best probably antidote to, nerves. But you feel prepared and you have a good foundation, so you feel like you can be free and you can change those decisions and you can change your mind and you can ride the energy wave that excitement of being in a live performance situation gives you.